Hello friends, we're hopping over to the real game today. Um, I wanted to do a more focused video today, specifically on RDMS. I get a lot of RDMS questions, a lot of people trying to figure out how to give the appropriate rights to different things and whatnot. So I just want to go over the whole kit and caboodle now, how it all works, how you can give rights to different things, what they mean. So, go start off with the basics. If you hit F7, that brings up your RDMS page. If I go to mine and create a policy, first things first, you need a name. Generally try and keep your names descriptive, just for your own sake, for being able to find it in the future, for knowing what they mean. And if you're doing something where you're going to have a lot of rights, or a lot of policies, put a description in. It's handy for being able to track it down later. Okay, so I'm just gonna call this one test, and so you can define preset actors, so you can define that separately, and then use those to basically have like a group of characters, or whatever. So, for instance, in an org, you might have like a factory manager actor. And you could have a group of people who all have full rights to the factory, and you could put all of them in that actor, and then here you could just say factory manager. And you could have then a couple of different policies that all apply to that same set of actors. And if you needed to change who was within that set, then you could change it there, rather than having to go to each individual policy. That's basically what the preset actor field is for. Most of the time you're going to be using just this basic search players and organizations. So if I wanted to grab like my main alt, that's like Golo, so I can add her to the group. I can also do core. It sorts players first and then organizations. So my organization for all of my alts is just called core. Core of the organization. So you can do that. That will apply then to any member of that organization. So anyone who's in that org, this policy will apply to. The next one that not a lot of people use, but it's handy, is all. I think it's called all. Predefined actors. All. Here we are. So if you just put all, then that literally just applies to everyone, every player in the game. So if you want to have a dispenser that anyone can use, all is perfect. There is also an all for tags. You can actually do all items, and that gives literally everything. So this policy now will give everyone in the game whatever right I define for every single item in the game. So there is actually one thing that I would like to do for this, which is specifically deploy dynamic core unit on territory. Most people who have played the game for long enough have at some point ended up falling out of a ship or crashing or whatever, ending up on a tile that was owned by someone else. And if you're on a tile that's owned by someone else, you cannot actually, you can't deploy a pocket rocket unless they've given you the rights to. So as a general rule, I like to actually give this right on all of my entities that are going to end up being tile owners, just so that if anyone wants to deploy their pocket rocket on my tile, they can. It seems like an odd protection, because like, if they can't deploy the dynamic core unit on my territory, then they might have to deploy it on a different territory and fly it over. It's not like it's stopping them from having ships on my territory, so I don't see any particular value in having the limitation in the first place. Might as well just let people deploy pocket rockets on my territory. So this would work for that, because all items does encompass everything, including territory units. You can also do that specifically by tag. So I sometimes have like tag a tile with CI access, which gives all of Crash Industries full rights on my tile. So I could do that, and that would apply to any territory unit that I'd specifically gone to that territory unit, gone to edit permissions, and given CI access as a tag on that territory unit. But the other thing you could do is you can actually go by the item hierarchy. So here, I could say territory units. And that will give this right, or will apply this policy to all of my territory units. So this here is actually universal pocket rocket deployment. Oh, apparently it's too long. Universal pocket rocket deploy. I'm sure that works. So I can create that policy, and now everyone in the game has the ability to deploy their pocket rocket on any tile owned by Corozarius, the character. That's something I kind of jumped over. Here, this is for you, so this only applies to things that I own myself. These are the orgs that I am a legate in, so I have access to the policies for those as well. Which raises an interesting point. One interesting thing here is if you want to give access to, there's a few rights in here that are specific to orgs. So specifically Consult Wallet and what's the other one? I'm sure there's another one. Oh, Deploy or Claim Organization Constructs. And then there's also the map one, or the See the Territories. Where is that? View Organization Territories. So these three are all specific to the organization itself. So for these, you have to actually put here organization. That's the tag. So if you want to give particularly people the rights to use your wallet. Oh, there's also edit wallet, isn't there? Edit from wallet. So these four rights, sorry. Basically, you have to put that organization tag, and then you can put someone else in there, and then they will be able to log in, and if they open the wallet, they could potentially be able to see your wallet if you've given them that permission. Or if you open up the territory list, it will actually say on the map, like it will show the organization's territories on the map, which is kind of nifty. And then there's, of course, deploy or claim organization constructs. So that will let you literally deploy a ship or a building as with the org as the owner. So that's a handy dandy one. Another item hierarchy that I often end up using is surrogate station equipment. So this here, I actually have a right on all of my stuff to connect to surrogate pod stations and use Element for Crash Industries, which is my primary org, if I can type. So this policy is something that I tend to put on all of my individual characters and on my personal orgs. And basically it just means surrogate station equipment applies to both VR stations and VR pods. So this right will allow anyone in the group of actors that I've defined to both VR into any of my VR pods and also VR out of any of my surrogate stations. So this basically gives them blanket access to that. I can also put in here resurrection nodes. And now any of my resurrection nodes, any of my surrogate stations, they can use freely. Which I find it's a very handy policy to have something like that, to be able to give blanket access like that, because then you don't need to remember to tag things. Because that's something that I kind of glanced over that I should get to now, is that most of these rights only work by tags, or at least that's how most people use them. So here, this is a VR pod. So someone can use one of these, the surrogate stations, to VR into one of these. But in order to do that, they have to have the rights. So under set element rights here, you would have to add a tag to it and use that tag in an RDMS policy in order to give them the rights to access it. So if I had one that I wanted to actually be public access, which I believe I do over on the gas station over there, so just keep it over there, you could add a tag to it to specifically give people, like to specifically build out a policy to let anyone have access to it. So this is the clearly work in progress factory for Crash Industries. So if I do set element rights on this, you'll see it has the open public tag. And that means that anyone can VR into this VR station. So if anyone wants to come and see this craptacular factory that's still very much in progress, it's just called the Craft Industries Alioth Forge. You can come here and take a look at all my random crap that's just tossed together here because we just moved from Thades and I haven't gotten around to rebuilding it yet. Yeah, so that's the tag system. Territories also have tags that work in a very similar way. The construct as a whole also has tags that work in a very similar way, so you can set construct rights on the whole construct. So here I could give it something that would let anyone use any VR stations on it or something like that, and that's fine. Also here, you can specifically exempt things from the hierarchy. So here, on this specific pod, it has use construct rights on. I could actually disable that, and then that would make this one like sort of exempt from the rest of the policies on the construct. So something that I literally didn't think of until this moment that you could do is you could, for a ship that's like a showroom model, you could give the construct blanket use element policies so that anyone in the game can use elements across your ship and exempt the pilot seat. So you could have literally like, let them go around, let them press the buttons, see what they do, they want to turn the lights on and off, whatever, give them access to do all of those things, to press all of the buttons, to activate the programming boards, whatever, all that jazz. But you don't want them to fly the ship away. So you could just give a policy to the whole ship that says use element, and then on the pilot seat, uncheck use construct rights, and then they should not be able to have access to that. You can also exempt it here from surrogate station equipment. So I could say, actually, I don't want this one. I believe you can do that. Oh, maybe you have to do all. Looks like maybe you have to do all. But yes, so I could basically exempt this from a general policy. So I could have a general policy that says, let everyone connect to all of my surrogates pod stations. That's fine. And then I can have a private one that I'm like, actually, this one, I'm going to check that box and say, don't include this one in the item hierarchy. And that would handle it. Now I just hit cancel. Let me just check and confirm. Yes, that did indeed cancel it. So yeah, that handles that. One thing I see come up a lot is people wondering how to give permission to compactify a construct, and that is not a thing. You cannot give permission for someone to compactify your construct. Your construct has to be yours. So here, if I want to deploy my construct as, if I deploy it under my org, I can deploy it fine, but now when I try and compactify it again, I can't. It has to be something I own. There's no way I can fix that through RDMS. So now I have to go construct, advanced, tokenize construct. When you tokenize constructs, the key always goes into your inventory, even if your inventory isn't the active inventory. And then you just right click and use construct key. Now it's my ship again. And Alt B will work once I'm not on it anymore. Alt Y is the D-board thing. Because I'm in space, it considers you still on the ship, even when you're a little bit away from the ship sometimes. It's a really inconvenient thing about being in space. But if you hit Alt-Y, it tends to take you off of it. You have to be a certain distance away. Because it's a small ship, I didn't have to be terribly far away, but if I was trying to step off of this ship here, I might have to walk a few more paces away to get it to register that I can actually not be on it anymore. Oh, I got too close again. Alright, stand back here. Alt-B. Lump. Now it's mine. Okay, that was a bit of a brief foray into compactification, but I think it was important for to clarify that that's not something that's controlled by rights. So some other things to know, handy things. It used to be that anytime you created a new construct, it added a tag for that construct. I actually went through when the game started and deleted all of my tags from beta because I had hundreds of them. Literally, I was a shipbuilder and I made a lot of sample ships. I made a lot of dummy single-use ships, and I just had so many tags here, and I had to just sit and delete all of them, which was a pain. But now that's not a default anymore, thank goodness. So you have to actually tell it to create a tag if you want it to. But here, you can actually see it gives you a summary here where it specifically says, is this used in a policy? So like here, I have test making everything. I don't remember what I used that tag for, but it's not actually used in any policies. And there's a button here that shows assets, and you can click it, and I can see there's no associated assets. So this is a tag that I made, but it's not currently on any assets, and it's not currently used in any policies, so I'm just going to delete it. And territory isn't used in any policies, but I do have 3 territories that have that as their tags. That said, I don't care. I'm not going to use it, so I'm going to delete it. And here I use shuttle Mark III. I've built some shuttles with that name, but apparently, sorry, Mark II, but apparently none of them still exist, so we're just going to delete that one. That's fine. And then Saga access, that should be, I have one ship that has the Saga's HUD on it. Oh, wait, I don't own that. Core owns that. Okay, well, apparently I don't have a tag for that right now, so I'll have to sort that out if I want them to upgrade it. But yeah, CI access, there should be something. Nope. Oh, right, I don't really own much myself. Hang on, let me hop over to Transport Union. There should be some stuff here. Oh, wow. See, things have gotten a little out of control here. But boosting, so these are things that I've set up to let other people boost for me. So I added this boosting tag, and then I've got a policy that has a few people that I trust to have build rights on my ship that I've set up then to give them that right. So you can see this here as like, this is the list of different things that have this tag on them. And then you can also, then if I want to know, like, okay, so I've got this boosting tag, and it's on these 3 ships, but like, what is the actual policy? You can flip over to policies, and you can actually go search by tag, and click on boosting, and search, and it will say, okay, here's the policy. So I can open this up and see, this is the group of people that I have entrusted to have a ton of rights on any of those ships that I've added a tag to. You can also then search by actor. So if I can go here, I can hop over here. Oh, if I had an actor, which I don't. So that's handy if you have actual like actors defined, which I don't tend to use that feature, so I don't have that anywhere. But actually I think Crash Industries has one. So nope, looks like we removed it. And then there's also rights, so you can literally see here, if you want to figure out like what rights you've given, you can literally be like, okay, who have I actually given rights to build my constructs, and search. And so here I see I've got the alt access one, which just lets my alts that aren't legates in the organization have build rights, and you see here the rights, there's 30 rights in there. So I basically gave my alts blanket access, like I'm a legate of this organization, so any of my characters should be able to edit or do anything that I can do. So I've just given them everything across all items. So here, if I open this up and edit it, we'll see, oh, apparently I gave Jack access to that too. So Jack, if you're watching this video, you have rights to all my stuff. And literally it's just all, although actually I did that wrong. This should be all items. And sometimes I've made that mistake. And here, CI access I've given for CI access. So if I've tagged it with CI access, or all of my surrogate station equipment. And here I should also put in my resurrection nodes, so they can use those. That's fine. So yeah, that's sort of the quick rundown of all of the different features in RDMS. That was a pretty high level rundown, but I covered most of it. There's also the duplicate button, so if you've got one that you've done for something before, like here, I set this up to let someone board one of my ships because I was helping her recover a ship from orbit. So I know I already have that right set up that worked for them, so if I want to do that again, I can just hit duplicate and put in whatever the other player's name is who I'm doing that for, and I know that the policy should work because I used it before. Overlap rights, that's an important one. Actually, I should just go over all the rights. So yes, overlap rights is important if you are working in a tight area. So deploy overlap building zones. So this is really important for things like this cluster over here, where if I pop on dynamic constructs and have a look, there's a lot of ships right over there. We don't have a lot of landing space right now because I haven't gotten the honeycomb to expand, so you can see there's cores out there, but I haven't actually built the landing pads or structures on them yet, so there's still a lot of work to do there. But if anyone wants to come and deploy a ship there, they're going to be overlapping with the build areas of a whole bunch of other ships. So it's going to be really hard for them to find a spot where you can actually like just deploy a ship, or deploy another space core. So like if I wanted to, I already have that one there, which I've said not to use. But like if I didn't have Forge Ring 4 yet, and I wanted to deploy it there, and someone else had a ship on here, I might not be able to deploy it because it's too close to someone else's core. So if they didn't have the proper overlap rates set up, I wouldn't be able to. So that's an important one to make sure that you get sorted out. Board construct just lets you walk on it while it's active. If a construct isn't being used, if it's like static and frozen, then board construct doesn't apply, I don't think. I think you can walk on ships if they're just like sitting physics locked somewhere, without a problem. Not 100% confident on that, but build construct, self-explanatory. Lets you go into build mode, lets you rip parts off of it or add parts to it. Connect surrogate pod station, again, self-explanatory. Consult wallet, I already talked about. Create core blueprint from construct. So that will let someone actually, they have to be in build mode in order to do it, but it will let someone make a blueprint of it. So I've got my one ship that Saga is technically, like Sagacious is the original builder of, because it's got his HUD on it, and that's how he's distributing it at the moment. So if I wanted to make a copy of that ship, I would have to give him build rights on the ship so that he can edit it and create core blueprint from construct. And then he could create a blueprint copy and I could pay him for it, in order to get like a duplicate with my modifications. And the same would apply for any ship build. If I bought a Vector Voyager and then I made some modifications to it and I was like, you know what, I really want another Vector Voyager that's like this one, like this one that I've modified, I would have to talk to Toby one, and I would have to give him build rights and create core blueprint from construct rights on that ship that I have, and then probably pay him in order to make me a blueprint copy of my version of the Vector Voyager, because he is the original owner. So yeah, that's create core blueprint. Deploy core unit on construct. If you are deploying a core, cores are always deployed in relation to something. So if you're deploying it on the surface of a planet, that is, the planet is sort of the parent then at that point of the construct that you've deployed. If you're deploying it on the surface of something else, so like earlier when I deployed my pocket rocket, I was deploying it on the forge. If you're deploying it out in the air, then that's just space. Technically, the solar system is also an entity that has like rights and permissions in a way, odd as that may sound. So if you're not parented to a ship and you're in space, like you're parented to the solar system. And that's basically just like everything is moving within relation to the solar system. Whereas if you parent to a ship, then you're moving within relation to that ship. So here I could also come here and deploy it theoretically on this ship here. Although it's not letting me, and I'm not 100% sure why. Oh, you know what? I probably have to go into snap mode. So if I go into snap mode on this ship, then yeah, I can deploy it in relation to this ship too. So if I come over here and page up to the point where I'm above it, now if I were to then deploy this ship here, now it's going to be like it is docked to this parent ship. Although, nope, it's not. So it drifted off into space. Gotta go catch that. Sometimes that happens. It just wasn't docked properly, so it's okay. I got it. We're good. Come back down. So yeah, that was. Hang on, I don't like that jetpack sound, so I'm just gonna get down to the things the jetpacking sound stops. So that was deploy core unit on construct. Also, if you're deploying just a raw core, it does the same thing. So the core, in that case, it does actually come out docked if you're deploying just a core. So you can use that to build multi-core systems. So you can build a ship and then put a smaller core on that ship and build off of that, and then it will be like it's like one big ship in a way. Although you gotta be careful you don't maneuver tool it, because if you maneuver the smaller ship off of the bigger ship, you kind of rip it off and there's no way to get it perfectly aligned again. So in that case, you'd have to use that blueprint deployment tool. I talked about that in the first video, in order to align a blueprint of it the same way. I've done multi-core ships like that before, where I have voxel work along the outside of the ship, that is blocking engines and stuff like that, because if it's not on the actual main core, then that's allowed. So I built some ships where I actually like completely enclosed pieces that were functional pieces. So I completely enclosed engines and wings and stuff like that with a docked core. Um, and then I messed up and accidentally maneuvered the docked core, ripped it right off, and I had to like take a blueprint of it, tear it down, redeploy it as the blueprint off of that spot on the ship. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but easier now that you could deploy it as a blueprint. At the time, actually, I had to deploy just a core and then copy and paste all the voxel work over, which luckily they were voxel only constructs. But now you can do it with stuff that actually has elements on them. So you could have like resurrection nodes or containers. You can actually have like docked storage containers that you can then drop off and then rebuild them from the blueprint as a way to reattach them. Just a bit of an extra step, but it's cool that it's actually possible. Okay. Deploy dynamic core unit on territory. Talked about that one already as well. Deploy item. I'm not actually sure what that one does. It just says gives the rights to deploy an item. And I'll be honest with you, I've never used that one independently. I've put it in some of my blanket right stuff just to give people the ability to do stuff, but like, I don't know if it actually does anything. Because like, if the item is already there, it's already deployed. So yeah, I'm not 100% convinced that does anything. Deploy or claim organization constructs. Talked about that one. So that lets you deploy or claim an organization construct as if it were your own, or as if you were a legate. Deploy overlap building zones. Talked about. Deploy static core unit on territory. It's pretty self-explanatory. Give it on a territory right to let people put buildings on your territory. There is now the reclamation system. So if someone deploys a static core unit on your territory and you don't want it there, you can right click it and say reclaim construct, and that will start a 2-week countdown and ping the owner to say like, hey, someone is stealing your building. You've got 2 weeks to get it off of their territory. So you can be a little more free with this right now than you could be in the distant past before they introduced that system, because back then, if someone deployed a static core unit on your territory, that's it. It was there until they decided to take it away. You couldn't do anything about it. Dig territory, self-explanatory. Don't give this to people, ever. Digging territories, it creates a lot of lag. If you're around a bunch of terrain modifications, that's a lot for the system to load, and it does tend to make an area a lot more laggy. So I actually have policies where I've given like members of my orgs access to like everything except that. I'm like, no, you cannot dig my territory. Don't touch it. Dock construct, pretty self-explanatory. Lets you dock one construct to another. Gives you the rights to do that. You still have to actually go through the motions and do it, hit the Alt-T and all that jazz. I'll make a video about that at some point. Edit element lets you edit stuff about the element. So like if you have a light, you can edit the color. If you have a programming board, you can edit the code, assuming it's not DRM protected. Stuff like that. Edit from wallet lets you actually like spend money in the wallet. So lets you spend money as an org, basically. So I can log in as my org and pay territory taxes. I can create marketplace orders. I can buy things off of the marketplace. All that takes the edit wallet or being a legate. Edit schematic bank, pretty self-explanatory. On an industry unit, if it has a schematic bank, you'll need that in order to change the schematic bank. Harvest on territory lets you pick up rocks on a territory. Maneuver construct lets you maneuver it with the maneuver tool. Mine territory lets you mine ore in a territory. I don't think that does anything anymore either, because you can't mine on a territory anymore. So it used to be separate digging and mining, because the ability to like dig out on a territory versus actually mine the ore that the territory held were two different things, and so they were given differently. But that's not true anymore, because there is no more underground mining. Put items in a container, self-explanatory, lets you open up a container, put stuff in it. Rename construct, lets you rename the whole construct. Rename element, you can rename elements. I'll do a building video at some point and explain a bit more about that. Repair construct, I don't think you actually need a right to do that. I'm pretty sure you can just repair anyone's construct. I'm sure I've repaired random strangers' constructs on marketplace tiles all the time, so I don't think that one does anything either. Retrieve items container, self-explanatory, lets you take stuff out of the container. Right to use jetpack. If you're on a ship or space station, you can turn on your jetpack to just start like floating, but you need a right to do that. So if you're on someone's ship, they have to actually give you the right to use the jetpack to get around. So that can be convenient in like space stations and stuff like that. Or honestly, the most logical place I've seen it used was on a puzzle. Someone built a puzzle on a space station, and they had like different cores in different positions, so gravity would like shift on you as you were moving around. And if you could just turn your jetpack on, you could just bypass all the gravity puzzles. So they did not give the right for that. Done. Start mining unit. That gives an individual the right to start a mining unit that is on your territory. So that's a bit of a complicated one because you need the right to start the mining unit from the territory owner, but you also need the right to use the element from the construct owner. So I can have a territory that's owned by Crash Industries, and on it there is a construct that is owned by Core, my organization. And then I can go there on one of my alts, say Legolo. Although Legolo is a legate, of course, that's a bad example, but whatever, it's fine. And then in order for Legolo to be able to open that mining unit and start it, I need to have the use element permission from Core on the mining unit in order to actually open up the interface at all. And I need the start mining unit permission from Crash Industries because they are the territory owner in order to start a mining unit on their territory. So that's what that one is. So basically, like, just the rights to use an item on someone's territory doesn't actually mean that you have the right to mine on that territory. So if you've set up a construct to let other people mine on your territory, for instance, and you've let them build their own construct there, they can give someone else the rights to use the mining unit, but you have to give them the rights to actually start it in the first place. So if you haven't given the rights for someone to start a mining unit, then they can't take your ore pool, basically. And if you give it, and they do, reclaim their construct and remove their rights to start the mining unit. And then within 2 weeks, either it's your mining unit now, or they would have had to have removed it. So take snapshots of construct. That's for repair units. So you can manually take a snapshot of a construct, and then you can repair it back to that state. I'll do a quick glance at that in a second. Use element just lets you use the element. Very self-explanatory. That's pretty generic. Any element. View container contents. If you don't want them to be able to put things in a container or remove items from the container, but you do want them to be able to see what's in there, view container contents is the one. View organization territories, I also already talked about. So snapshot. There's these things called repair units. I happen to have one right here. So anything within, I think it's a kilometer of this repair unit, you can repair. So for instance, this ship right here, I smacked it into the bottom of the space station earlier, and so it has a few elements that are broken that was their last life, so they're toast. So this one here is destroyed, so it needs to be replaced. I can just go around and replace them individually if I have replacements, which I don't in my active inventory. I'm sure I do somewhere. Just everything's still in boxes, so I've got to find it. But you can also set up this repair unit to do it for you. So here I could go and find the tow rake in S, which is this one, and hit repair. And it has the last updated auto and also a last updated manual. So at some point, I went to the ship and right-clicked it and did construct and advanced and take manual snapshot. So basically that takes a snapshot of it with all of the elements as they are in this place currently. So if you are planning on making some modifications to your ship, but you want to be able to get it back to the state that it was in before, you can actually take a manual snapshot, make your modifications, voxel work, elements, the whole kit and caboodle, and then you can take it to a repair unit and fire it up this repair thing and select that manual snapshot, and it will take it back to that state. So here it has required items because I am missing some things, including on the manual snapshot I had the repair unit on the ship. So it's trying to put a repair unit on the ship, even though that ship doesn't have a repair unit on it anymore. But it did when I took the manual snapshot. But the auto snapshot won't have that because I at some point manually removed it, and then it took an automatic snapshot after I removed it. And yeah, you would need that RDMS right in order to make that manual snapshot. So yeah, that pretty much covers all of the RDMS rights, how to use the interfaces, what the item hierarchies are. Oh, actually, the item hierarchies I should say just a tiny bit more about, specifically that they are in like classes. So I can give rights to use repair unit XL specifically, and that will let them use all repair units, or I can give rights to all combat and defense elements, and that will let them use or do whatever. That will make the policy apply to all combat and defense elements. That's going to be like all weapons, shields, everything. So I can make a policy that applies to all of those things. So like if I have a PvP ship and I like to let my org on it all the time, if I did that, then they can probably touch my shields, my weapons, probably gunner chairs I suspect are under there as well. Basically, it would give them permission to use all of the PvP elements on my ship. Kind of a niche example, but regardless, the point is this is like a hierarchy tree. So you can give permissions to any level of that tree. Okay, I think that's good. I think that covers everything. So I'm going to call it there, and hopefully that helps. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.